Hello, everyone. Now, one of the worst things that this Labour government, this Starmer regime has done, and it's done many terrible things, but this is to cancel the elections that were due to take place in England on the 1st of May 2025 in 9 local council county areas. And those authority areas are here. I'm just going to put them up on the screen. East Sussex, Essex, Hampshire, the Isle of Wight, Norfolk, Suffolk, Surrey, Thurrock, and West Sussex. Now, I think by now you probably know that because this is well known, it's well established, it's an absolute outrage, and it is this government cancelling elections which should happen, and it is anti-democratic from a government that continually protests that they're for freedom and democracy, where they're taking democracy away from approximately 6 million people. The thing is, though, the Heritage Party has been challenging this. And our fantastic General Secretary, Madeline Hunt, has been writing letters and requesting information through freedom of information requests and writing to even the government barrister who is trying to defend this decision in order to make a challenge as to the legality of this election cancellation. And the government has written back. And it's very, very interesting what they've said. Now, Madeline, on behalf of the Heritage Party, wrote to the government on the 6th of February requesting information within the normal 14-day period. But they said, well, we can't answer within 14 days. We can answer within about 4 weeks. So they responded actually finally on the 6th of March. And there's some very interesting things in the letter, which I will just go through here. Not that one. Sorry, I'm going to remove that. One of the first things they said in the letter was just to set the scene and say that what happened was the Secretary of State for local authorities, made the local authorities changes to years of ordinary elections, England Order 2025, which was laid before Parliament on the 11th of February and came into force on the 4th of March. Now, the 11th of February is an important date to remember for just a few minutes' time. And they went on to say, well, the Local Government Act includes powers available to the Secretary of State to alter elections by order, the scheme of elections to local authorities and the years in which elections are held. So this power has been in law under the Local Government Act 2000 since the year 2000. And then they say, well, this has been used before in a number of cases. In 2018, in some districts in Buckinghamshire and Dorset, there was some local government rearrangement there. Northamptonshire, which was in financial collapse, so the county was no longer viable, so they changed the structure of governments in Northamptonshire in 2018 as well. And also then they say Cumbria, North Yorkshire and Somerset in 2021. The thing with these is that apart from Northamptonshire, which was in financial collapse, the other places, there were already consultations and discussions going on for a very long time before that. For example, in Somerset, they postponed the elections from 2021 to 2022, but there were already consultations going on as to what would happen in Somerset from 2018. So they'd already had 3 years of discussions about what was going to happen in Somerset. They postponed the elections for a year, but they knew what was going to happen afterwards, or it was pretty certain what was going to happen afterwards anyway, in terms of restructuring the local government. Now, the difference between then, those examples that they've just given, and now, is that they've just suddenly said, we're going to cancel elections in these 9 areas, but there's been no discussion as to what's going to take place. The government minister, Angela Rayner, has just been saying, well, we're going to have unitary authorities here, but they don't know what the unitary authorities are going to be. Are they going to be councils? Are they going to be districts? Are they going to be a mix of the two, larger districts? Are they going to get rid of the councils and have 4 or 5 unitary authorities within each council? Or are they going to just have the county as the unitary authority? No one knows. No one's being consulted in the public at all. They've had some, very, very rudimentary consultations with councillors, and a lot of them, we understand, are acting out of their own self-interest, because some of them think, well, we're county councillors, we'll go along with this because we're going to be in control of more, and then we'll get a larger stipend and more power, and particularly the leaders of the councils who actually believe that they're going to be these new mayors. They're going to have a position as the new regional mayors of the council, and they're going to be able to employ lots of staff. So a lot of people are angling to get a job and a position and finance and a salary in whatever comes afterwards, not acting in the interests of the people and providing the best public services to the people who are going to be affected by these changes in the council areas where they have postponed, as they say, but actually cancelled the elections, because we don't know what's going to come afterwards, if these local county authorities are even going to exist afterwards. Anyway, Section 87, just to show you this, it actually is a law. This is Section 87 of the Local Government Act 2000. It does actually say here, the Secretary of State may by order make provision which changes the years in which the ordinary elections of councillors of any specified local authority are to be held, but which does not change the scheme which prevails, bar for the ordinary elections of those councillors. The thing is, if they're replacing the councils, you could argue that the scheme is going to change. I mean, if they're going from having thirds and halves elections every year, apart from 1 to elections every 4 years, but that's a moot point. The order that's been made, as you can see it here, is the local authorities changes to years of ordinary elections, England Order 2025, and it actually says they're postponing the elections for 1 year. The elections that would have been held in 2025 are going to be held in 2026, but we don't know that. That's the thing. We don't actually know this because there hasn't been any consultation as to whether these councils are actually going to even exist in 2026 to have elections or not, or even if the changes to the local government are going to be ready by 2026, because there hasn't been any consultation with the public whatsoever as to what the public wants. So if there were to be a judicial review, and that could happen, then you may be able to challenge this order on the basis that we don't know whether these councils are still going to exist. And there's been absolutely no discussion and consultation as to what will replace them. So we don't know if the local government reorganization that Angela Rayner wants will actually be complete in time to hold elections in whatever new or unitary authority she says she wants by 2026, because the discussions and consultations may not have finished by then. So then you may have to have another delay in elections until 2027 or 2028, which would really make a mockery of democracy. I mean, I don't think that this order should stand if there were a judicial review, on the basis that they don't actually know what they're going to replace these councils with, because it's all chaotic and up in the air and just being done essentially on a whim without any plan whatsoever. It's being rushed through without any plan or any thought for local people. The trouble with judicial reviews, of course, is that they're very expensive to do. I think they cost at least £5,000. I don't have the money to actually enact a judicial review, but you would think, people who try to speak out about this, who've got a bit more money, might actually, challenge this with a judicial review. There's still time, because the nomination period for the 2025 elections doesn't begin officially until the 26th of March or thereabouts, and closes on the 2nd of April. So you could have a judicial review before the election process begins. The other thing about this that they wrote, which is very interesting, is that they said, well, this order has been laid under a statutory instrument. So the Local Government Act 2000 allows Angela Rayner, who's the Secretary of State, to make an order that I just showed you, which is a statutory instrument, a piece of secondary legislation. And the statutory instrument is subject to the negative procedure. And as it is, there is a 40-day period in which the order can be prayed against in Parliament. So remember, I said, remember the 11th of February, which is when the order was laid, and it came into effect on the 4th of March. So there are 40 days, and this is a 40 sitting days with a 5-day sitting week in Parliament. That actually gives you 8 weeks to challenge the order. So an MP or a Lord can challenge this order and seek a motion with a vote in Parliament. And if the vote has more votes against it than for it, then the order will become null and void. From the Parliament's website, this sort of explains the procedure. A negative procedure, it's a type of parliamentary procedure that applies to statutory instruments, etc. A statutory instrument laid under negative procedure becomes law on the day the minister signs it. So I believe that was the 4th of March, but it actually came into force in law, and automatically remains law unless a motion or prayer to reject it is agreed by either house within 40 sitting days. So either the Commons or the Lords can reject this order to cancel the elections. And all it would need for a motion to happen is one MP or one Lord in either house to pray against the order or to introduce a motion either to the Commons or the Lords, asking for it to be made null and void. This is from Parliament's website as well, talking about a prayer motion against a statutory instrument. A prayer motion can be used by members of either house to object to a statutory instrument. A motion to seek the overturn, or a motion, seeking to overturn a negative instrument will include the wording that a humble address be presented to His Majesty praying that the instrument be annulled. So, what someone can do then, an MP or a Lord, is introduce a motion against this statutory instrument that cancels the elections. And if there are more Lords, if it's in the House of Lords, or more MPs, if in the House of Commons, against the order than for it, then it falls and the elections will have to go ahead, because the secondary legislation that Angela Rayner laid will be declared null and void if this happens within 40 days of the 11th of February. And thus MPs and Lords have the power collectively to overturn the cancellation of the elections. Now, I haven't heard anyone talking about this at all, and that there is a possibility to overturn this in Parliament. And, you have other parties after the Heritage Party, such as Reform, they say, oh, this is terrible, the elections are being cancelled, it affects us. Well, it affects all the challenger parties. It's very clear that the reason that they're doing this is because they don't want any challenger parties to make ground and get councillors in this year's elections. The Heritage Party is very, very affected by this, because we had a lot of candidates in the areas where the elections have been cancelled, like Sussex and Surrey and Hampshire and Essex, for example. We still do have a lot of candidates in Kent and Devon and other places, but we had a lot in those areas where the elections are being cancelled. Reform have said the same, but they seem to be more interested in fighting each other now. They've collapsed into fighting like rats in a sack, that they're not really focused on the game, but it's not the game, but they're not focused on the political process, even though they're saying that they are. So it's taken the Heritage Party, it's taken our General Secretary Madeleine to write and get this information from the government. I mean, if you know the parliamentary process very well, you would know all about statutory instruments and things, but in how it works. But it was very useful to get the explanation and actually to see there the government barrister, their own barrister for the Department of Housing, Communities and Local Government, actually admitting that there is a way to overturn this election cancellation. What they also go on to suggest in the letter is that if you are concerned about this, and they're speaking to Heritage Party members here mainly, but this could apply to anybody who's concerned about election cancellations, is write to your MPs so that if there is a motion against this order, then they can be in the chamber and vote against it. But I haven't heard any MP from any party in Parliament actually make any noise at all, not a single statement about the possibility of getting these elections cancelled. But, if people have spoken about it and just, spoken about it on social media, who are MPs and who are Lords, then they can actually take action. So it would be very interesting to see, the people who do have those positions, whether they will decide to pray against this statutory instrument and try to get our elections reinstated and uncancelled, because it has to be done now. Because if they leave it after the nomination periods begin, then obviously the timetable will change and you can't have them on the scheduled day, and the government gets its way, the government which is acting against democracy. So we shall see. Obviously, if the Heritage Party had an MP, we would have been on this straight away. We have been in writing these freedom of information requests, and now we know we wouldn't waste a second in praying against this statutory instrument. Whether anyone else does or not, I don't know. But if you do have concerns about this, what I would suggest is you write to your MPs and tell them about this. The letters which we've written to the department and the letters we've got back from the department's barrister are on Madeleine's Substack, and I'll leave a link to that in the social media platforms where I can leave links. And obviously I'll put this on Right Think TV, and you can see the link there if you look at this video, watch it there, and I can put a little bit more written explanation about what's going on rightthink.tv. So have a look there. If you can't see the link to Madeleine's Substack on the channel you're watching, if you're watching on X or something, I can't put a lot of characters, but you can watch the video anyway. So thank you for listening. Let's hope that we can get these elections reinstated in these 9 areas, because it's absolutely outrageous that governments now, not just in the UK, it's happening in Romania, it's happening in other places, governments are cancelling elections because they want to keep out people who are challenging the globalist agendas, and we need to carry on doing that. Anyway, thank you for listening, everyone, and God bless you all.